There's a reason silence makes people uncomfortable. Most of us have been conditioned to fill every quiet moment with chatter, small talk, nervous laughter, pointless filler. But the truth is, silence is one of the most powerful weapons you can carry. And when you master it, people can't help but take you seriously. Think about it. How do you usually feel when you're talking to someone and they just pause? They don't rush to respond. They just sit there, calm and collected. Chances are you start second-guessing yourself. You wonder, did I say something wrong? Are they judging me? What are they thinking? That's the hidden power of silence. It flips the pressure back onto the other person. Now here's the intimidating part. Most people rely on words to prove themselves, to defend themselves, to justify their actions. But when you don't rush to speak, when you can stay grounded in silence, it shows the kind of confidence that doesn't need validation. It says, I don't need to convince you. I already know who I am, and that unsettles people because it's rare. There's an old Stoic lesson here. Control begins with restraint. Restraint of words, restraint of reaction, restraint of impulses. Marcus Aurelius once said, the best answer to anger is silence. And that couldn't be more true today. Imagine an argument. Two people are shouting, throwing insults, their emotions running wild. Then there's a third person, calm, quiet, waiting. Not fuming, not flustered, just composed. Who do you think comes across as the strongest in that situation? It's the one who doesn't get dragged into the chaos. That's why silence is intimidating, because in silence you're showing people that you control the rhythm of the interaction, not them. Let me give you a simple example. Picture a meeting at work. Everyone's talking over each other, trying to sound smart, trying to win attention. But then one person waits. They don't rush. They let the noise die down. And when they finally speak, every head in the room turns, because silence made space for their words to land with impact. That's the power of restraint. Silence sharpens your words like a blade. You don't say more, you say enough. Here's something you can start practicing today. The next time someone says something provocative or insulting to you, don't react instantly. Pause, breathe. Let them sit in the silence they just created. You'll notice how uncomfortable they become, how quickly they scramble to fill the void. That pause alone communicates strength. Remember, anyone can talk. Most people ramble, but very few have the discipline to master silence. And that discipline makes you intimidating. Not in a threatening way, but in a way that earns quiet respect. Because silence, when used with intent, is a language of power. One of the most intimidating things you can ever display is emotional self-control. Why? Because in today's world, everyone is trained to overreact. Someone insults you online, you fire back. Someone cuts you off in traffic, you explode with anger. A disagreement at work, voices rise, tempers flare. But imagine being the person who never takes the bait. The one who, no matter the insult, the chaos, or the storm around them, remains composed. That right there is intimidating. Not because you're aggressive, but because you're untouchable. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers and emperors of Rome, said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What he meant is simple. The world will always try to provoke you, but your reaction is your responsibility. And when you refuse to give people the reaction they want, you take away their power over you. Think about it. Why do people insult you in the first place? Why do they provoke you? Because they want to control your emotions. They want to see you break, to make you look foolish, to get a reaction. But when you remain calm, you flip the script. You send a silent message that says, "Your words don't move me. Your chaos doesn't reach me." And that silence unnerves people more than any insult ever could. Picture this scenario. You're at a party and someone tries to embarrass you with a joke. Most people would try to defend themselves instantly, maybe throw another insult back. But you just smile, stay calm, and keep your composure. Suddenly, the joke isn't funny anymore. Everyone notices that the punch didn't land, and the person trying to provoke you looks weaker, not you. This is the power of emotional control. It shifts the spotlight. It exposes other people's lack of discipline while highlighting your strength. But here's something important. Self-control doesn't mean you suppress emotions or pretend to be cold. It means you channel them wisely. You acknowledge anger, but you don't let it dictate your actions. You recognize fear, but you act with courage anyway. You see the chaos around you, but you don't let it invade your inner peace. In fact, self-control is like a shield. It protects your mind from being hijacked by external noise. And when people realize they can't get a reaction out of you, no matter what they throw at you, they start respecting you, sometimes even fearing you. Here's a practice you can try. The next time someone says something meant to trigger you, pause. Count 3 seconds in your head before you respond. Those 3 seconds give you the space to choose control over chaos. That's all it takes to stand apart from 99% of people who react without thinking. Remember, people expect anger, they expect outrage, they expect you to lose control. But when you don't, when you choose composure over chaos, you become quietly intimidating. Because true power isn't loud. True power is calm. Talk is cheap. Promises are everywhere. Everyone says they'll do something, but very few actually follow through. That's why consistency of action is one of the most intimidating habits you can ever develop. When you become the kind of person who always does what you say, people start to notice. They might not say it out loud, but deep down, they respect you. Because reliability is rare. In a world full of broken promises, flakiness, and excuses, a consistent person stands out like a mountain. Immovable, dependable, solid. And here's the truth. Consistency builds quiet authority. You don't have to shout, brag, or convince anyone. People trust you because your actions prove your words. You said you'd be there. You showed up. You said you'd finish the project. It's done. You said you'd commit to training 3 days a week. You're in the gym every time. No excuses. Now, why is this intimidating? Because it exposes the inconsistency in others. When people see you showing up every day, they realize how often they quit, how often they fall short, how often they talk without action. Your consistency becomes a mirror that reveals their weakness, and that makes them both respect you and, at times, feel uneasy around you. Think about it in practical terms. Let's say you're building a business, working out, or developing a skill. Most people quit after a few weeks when results don't show up fast enough. But if you keep grinding, day after day, week after week, your steady progress will start to intimidate. Not because you're showing off, but because you're proving what discipline looks like in real time. There's a Stoic principle here too. Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. That's the essence of consistency. Decide who you want to be, then let your daily actions reflect that identity. Don't just say you're disciplined, be disciplined. Don't just say you're reliable. Prove it over and over again. Here's a simple but powerful example. Showing up to the gym. Most people skip workouts if they're tired, busy, or not feeling it. But if you show up anyway, even on bad days, your discipline becomes visible. You're not relying on motivation, you're relying on consistency, and that makes you unshakable. Or think about friendships and relationships. Imagine someone who always keeps their word. If they say they'll call, they call. If they say they'll help, they help. That consistency creates trust, and trust is intimidating because it's power. It makes you the one others rely on when everything else is uncertain. So here's the takeaway. Don't strive to be impressive once in a while. Strive to be consistent every single day. Even small actions, when repeated with discipline, create massive authority over time. Remember this, flashy moments fade, but consistent action builds a reputation that speaks louder than words. And when your reputation is built on reliability, people can't ignore you, because consistency isn't just a habit, it's a form of quiet power. Most people are slaves, not to chains or masters, but to their own impulses. The craving for money, for lust, for constant attention. They jump at every temptation, every shiny distraction, every chance at instant gratification. And because of that, they're easy to manipulate. But here's where a Stoic stands apart. When you control your desires, you become untouchable. People can't bait you with status, They can't seduce you with shallow attention. They can't bribe you with money. And that kind of discipline is intimidating because it shows you live by principle, not by impulse. Think about it. How many people do you see chasing trends just to fit in? How many spend money they don't have just to look rich? How many hop from one shallow relationship to another just to feed their ego? That's the default state for most of society. Now imagine a man who doesn't play that game. He doesn't chase every person. He doesn't fall for every distraction. He moves with calm intention. That man stands out instantly. The Stoics understood this well. Seneca said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." In other words, real poverty isn't lack of money. It's lack of control. If you're always hungry for more attention, more validation, more dopamine, you'll never feel full. You'll always be at the mercy of others. But when you master your desires, you free yourself. And freedom is powerful. Freedom is intimidating. Let's look at a modern example. In dating, many men chase endlessly, desperate for validation, willing to compromise their dignity just to get attention. But the man who doesn't chase, who values himself, who's selective, that man is magnetic. Why? Because he shows he doesn't need anyone to feel whole. And ironically, that's exactly what makes people drawn to him. The same applies with money. Some people spend recklessly the moment they earn it, always flexing, always showing off. But the disciplined man who saves, invests, and lives below his means, he's dangerous in the best way because he can't be controlled by greed, and his patience builds real strength over time. Here's the truth. The person who can't say no is weak, but the person who can walk away from temptation, who can stay calm when others are desperate, that person commands respect. In a world full of half-truths, sugarcoating, and endless fluff, the person who speaks directly and honestly stands out like a blade in a room full of feathers. And that sharpness? It's intimidating, but in the best way possible. Most people avoid uncomfortable truths. They'll dance around them, soften them, or bury them completely because they don't want to offend or deal with conflict. But here's the problem. Avoiding the truth doesn't make it disappear. It just makes problems grow in silence. That's why Stoics believed in living and speaking with integrity, saying what needs to be said, clearly and respectfully, no matter how uncomfortable it is. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This is the essence of Stoic honesty, a commitment to clarity without deception. And when you live by this rule, people can't help but take you seriously. Now let's be clear. Directness doesn't mean being rude. It doesn't mean attacking or humiliating others. True directness is about respect, respecting yourself enough to stand by the truth, and respecting others enough not to lie to them. Think about feedback at work. Most people avoid telling their colleague the hard truth because they're scared of hurting feelings. So they sugarcoat, "Oh, it's fine, don't worry about it." But a Stoic approach would be different. "Listen, this part of your work needs improvement. Here's how you can fix it." That's not cruelty, and that's honesty. And people respect you more because deep down, they know you're telling them what they need to hear, not just what they want to hear. Directness is intimidating because it shows fearlessness. It proves you're not controlled by the need for approval. You don't twist your words just to be liked. You stand by the truth even when it's uncomfortable. And that unsettles people because it reveals their own tendency to avoid reality. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine you're with friends and someone asks for your opinion on something important. Most people will give a polite, watered-down answer to avoid conflict. But you answer calmly and truthfully, even if it's not the answer they were expecting. You don't raise your voice. You don't argue. You just state your truth with clarity. That's strength, and strength always commands respect. The beauty of honesty is that it simplifies your life. When you say what you mean and mean what you say, you no longer have to keep track of lies or juggle different stories. People know where you stand, and whether they agree with you or not, they can trust your word. Here's the practice. The next time you're tempted to soften your words just to please someone, pause. Ask yourself, am I being honest, or am I trying to be liked? Then choose truth, respectfully but firmly. Because the truth is this: Flattery fades, lies collapse, but honesty endures. And when people realize you're someone who doesn't bend the truth, that you'll look them in the eye and speak directly, it makes you intimidating, not through aggression, but through integrity. One of the most intimidating traits a person can have is unshakable purpose. In a world where most people wander aimlessly, jumping from one goal to the next, constantly distracted, constantly drifting, the man or woman who knows exactly where they're going stands out immediately. Purpose is rare, and that's exactly why it commands respect. When every action you take aligns with your deeper mission, people notice. They may not understand your path, but they feel the weight of your conviction. And that weight can be unsettling for those who don't have direction of their own. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. This wasn't just advice. It was a blueprint for life. Define your purpose, then let everything you do reflect it. Most people skip the first step. They never define who they want to be, so they drift, pulled by whatever distraction is strongest in the moment. But when you live with clarity, your actions are consistent, focused, and intentional. Let me paint a picture. Imagine two people. One wakes up each day with no plan, no direction. They scroll on their phone, they chase entertainment, they live reactively. The other wakes up with purpose. Maybe it's building a business, mastering a skill, or becoming a stronger version of themselves. Everything they do, their habits, their routines, their decisions, lines up with that mission. Who do you think intimidates more? The drifter or the one with laser focus? Purpose is intimidating because it reminds people of what they lack. Most people avoid asking themselves the hard questions, what do I want to become? What is my mission? So when they see someone who has already answered those questions and is living by them, it stirs discomfort. It forces them to confront their own drifting. But here's the beauty of unshakable purpose. It doesn't just intimidate others, it inspires them. People may feel uneasy around your conviction at first, but deep down, they crave it. Because everyone longs for direction. Everyone wants to feel like their life matters. Your purpose becomes a lighthouse for others who are lost in the fog. So how do you build this? Start by stripping away what doesn't matter. Ask yourself, if I could only focus on one or two things for the next 5 years, what would they be? That answer is your compass. Then align your daily actions with it. Not perfectly, not all at once, but step by step. Because purpose isn't found in grand declarations. It's found in small, consistent actions that stack up over time. And here's the Stoic reminder. Your purpose should be aligned with virtue. It's not about chasing shallow pleasures or external approval. It's about living in accordance with your nature, building discipline, wisdom, courage, and justice into everything you do. When you live this way, you don't need to announce your mission. People will feel it in your presence. They'll sense it in your discipline, your clarity, your focus. And that's why purpose is so intimidating. Because while most are wandering, you're walking a straight path. And nothing is more powerful than that. Most people spend their lives running from discomfort. They avoid hard conversations, skip tough workouts, and look for the easiest path in every situation. But the Stoics knew that growth lives on the other side of pain. That's why one of the most intimidating habits you can cultivate is the ability to willingly face discomfort and even welcome it. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the very obstacles you try to avoid are the ones that make you stronger. Most people hear that and nod their heads, but then immediately run back to their comforts. The one who actually applies it, who faces hardship without flinching, instantly stands apart. The truth is, discomfort is a forge. It burns away weakness and sharpens your character. Every time you choose discipline over ease, you prove to yourself that you're stronger than your impulses. And once you realize that, others will see it too. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't seek out suffering for its own sake, but they embraced challenges as training for the mind and spirit. To them, discomfort wasn't an enemy, it was a teacher. So when others run from hardship, be the one who walks toward it. When others cling to comfort, be the one who chooses the harder path. Not recklessly, but deliberately. knowing that each trial makes you more resilient, more disciplined, and ultimately more free. And that's why embracing discomfort is intimidating. Because while everyone else is trying to avoid life's storms, you're walking straight into them, calm, focused, and unshakable.